afternoon. It's 22nd of March, a little bit early for fishing really, but the missus is expecting a baby in about 2 months' time, so this is my last chance before the baby arrives. I got down here at 7 o'clock this morning. I've baited the canal. I'm in central France. I'm on a canal system that holds a few nice carp, but location's always the problem, and particularly at this time of year. But I've baited a few spots. And I've come onto a lake. I mean, we've had a very cold March. We have, at the moment, the temperature's about 8 degrees, 9 degrees. We've got a northerly wind pumping right down the other end of the lake. I've come to a lake. I fished it in 2007 for 2 nights, where really I was concentrating on the canal that sits directly behind the lake on the towpath. But I had 128 out of the canal in 2 nights, and I had a 38 and a 44 out of this lake and 1 small one. Of course, back in those days, I was fishing all the lakes around here that are around 1,000+ acres. So I had it in my head that this was small, but coming back to it, it's nowhere near as small as I last thought. The lake itself is long and thin. It's probably, I would say it's over 1 kilometre long, but it's only about 200 metres wide. But it's flipping shallow, so at least with this kind of sunny weather, at least it'll warm up a little bit quicker. We've had a very cold March, as I said. Temperatures have been around 1 or 2 at night and up to about 11 or 12 maximum during the day. Ideally, by this time of year, I'd like to have had a week of sort of 20-degree temperatures to really get the fish moving about. But it is what it is. I'm fishing up the north end of the lake, so I'm on the back of the northerly. As you can see, you can probably see I've got the bait boat with me. First time I bought a bait boat this year because I was planning on fishing a lake where boats are banned, and it was too big realistically to fish with, or the fish would be living out of casting range. So I bit the bullet after many years of slagging them off and saying, oh, I'd never use a bait boat. I've only ever borrowed one off a guy in France once before, but I thought I'd give it a go. So I've basically found my baits out. Typically I couldn't get the echo sounder to work. It wouldn't connect to the signal of the boat, but I plumbed this lake. I know it's a very shallow lake and it's pretty uniform out there, so I've basically got all 3 rods there out at distances for around 100-150 metres, just with one scoop full of hemp and about 30 or 40 live system 18mm baits in the hopper. They've been rehydrated in the hemp juice, and the view is, if I don't get anything by tomorrow late afternoon, I'm going to move to a different part of the lake. There are very few carp per acre on this lake, I think anyway, unless they've stocked it. So I'm going to have to be as mobile as possible. The idea is I'll start tonight. I'll do the night here. I think my best chance of a bite is during the daytime, so I'll fish through until late afternoon, and if it's not happening, I'll sling everything in the car, which is only about 50 yards away, and then drive up the other end of the lake. Don't really know what the score is with night fishing on here. I'm the only one on the lake. It's not surprising at this time of year. We're very early on in the year. The pike is starting to spawn a bit, but the carp, I'd be very surprised if they've woken up at all yet. I'm not particularly confident for the session. It's too cold. It's too cold for I mean, people are catching back in England. They're catching well, but it just doesn't. For lakes of this sort of size, it tends not to pick up quite so quickly. Incidentally, I've got another few rods just through here. As I said, I'm the only one on the lake. There's a reserve just up this way, but it's only about 3 foot deep at the deepest. But I'm just thinking, if it does get sunny, my best bet of a bite might well be in the really shallow water. But anyway, we'll see how things go. The view is I'll go down the other end of the lake if I don't get anything tomorrow afternoon, and then if I don't get anything following that after 24 hours, I'm going to go off to the canal for the day, fish the day with the view to coming back here in the evening. it's about 6 p.m. French time. Yeah, 6 p.m. French time. I've moved right up to the other end of the lake. It's probably about 1 kilometre from where I was. Fortunately, you can drive the car up. I've got the car probably no more than 100 yards away from where I am, which is a bonus. I'm 10 times more confident. You've basically got a round bowl at this end of the lake, and then it narrows off into a channel of about 60-70 yards wide, and then it goes out into the lake up to about 200 metres wide, and I was right down the other end where the reserve is. I've taken the Echo out on the bait boat. It's 4 foot deep. I can't find anything deeper than 4 foot. But this is where I had them from before, but that was in May, it wasn't at this time of year. Much more confident than I was, but again I think bites will be during the daytime, so my plan was to go off to the canal tomorrow, but I might give it until lunchtime here and then fish the afternoon on the canal, because I know the carp are in here. It's not that big a lake. It might be very long, but it's not particularly wide, so you'd like to think there's a chance that one of them will stumble across a bait at some point. It's Friday lunchtime. I've come over to the canal that I baited when I arrived. It's been raining all day. It's horrible weather. I've got the camcorder just under the profile at the moment, but it's been raining all morning. Had one small comment in the night from the long lake that I was fishing, probably about 15 pounds. I've got 2 rods just down on the other side of the sluice, and then 2 in the hotspot area where there are rumours to be a couple of real nice carp, but it's not very nice weather. It's cold. It's 8 degrees at the moment. Let's give this a few hours over the bait, see what happens. I'll be happy with anything, to be honest with you. Anything at all. Just find me some carp, please. Come on, the carp gods, work for me. Right, well, no sooner. Let's move that a little bit closer. I've only had the rods out about half an hour. I've got this lovely common straight away. Look at that. Great start. It actually came on the rods on the opposite side of the sluice gate. There we go. Yeah, so this isn't on the hotspot side, it's on the south side I've caught this. It literally ripped off. It took a Northern Special, just 15mm Northern Special, over the pre-bait that I put in a couple of days ago. Lovely, about 25 pounds, great start. God, half an hour later I've got another one. It's just starting to rain again. This one's even bigger. Wonderful, again came on the southern side of the sluice, on the downstream side of the sluice gate. Look at that. Pooing out a snail. Right. Cool, it's been feeding heavily. Oh, yes. How's that? There we are. 36 pounder. Can't really get the best angle here because it's so wet, but I don't want to get the camera wet. Absolutely superb. This one took a snowman presentation. They clearly came in on the pre-bait. Made up with this. I'm made up for the trip now. Feels like it's February, it's that cold. 8 degrees today and 2 carp. Happy days. Let's have a look at the other side. There we go, look at that. Look at that. Yes. I'm telling you now, this fish doesn't look like it's ever been caught before. There we go. get back. It's about 6 PM on Friday night. 2 fish today, 36 and about 26 pound common, didn't weigh it. So really happy with that. What you didn't see was that I lost 2. I can't believe it. 2 hook pulls, for no real reason. The first fish, I don't think it was that big. Came off after about 3-4 minutes of playing the fish. The second fish, on the other hand, I'll show you in a bit, but I hooked it right up by the sluice gates, and it took me probably about 60-70 yards down. I had to start walking down the canal, and then it started heading straight towards those trees over the far side. So I had to put on a little bit more pressure, and the hook just came out. I couldn't believe it. So the long shank size 6s, the covert muggers and the gardener, have let me down twice today. The carp that I have caught, certainly the big mirror, the 36 pound mirror, had had a big mouth, and it had a very fleshy mouth as well, with a lot of loose flesh on it. And I'm thinking that the gape of the size 6 wasn't sufficient, hasn't been sufficient to get a decent hold. So there's no more mucking around. I'm on size 2 101s now. I've up to 5.5 ounce leads, just so that the weight of that lead can nail home the size 2 hook and the much heavier gauge wire. But I'm not expecting anything more. I'm going to put about another 100 baits in tonight, this side and the top side, and I'm going to start fishing in the morning. So yeah, just get the stuff. It's been raining all day today, so I haven't had a chance to do any footage. But anyway, 2 fish out of the canal. I'm happy enough with that. Okay, just gone 12 o'clock Saturday lunchtime. No joy. I obviously just stumbled across that small group of carp by luck more than anything else. Put a bit more bait in, but I've had the rods out since 3 o'clock this morning. Well, at least down that side, and on this side I've had them out since about 6 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock now. Nothing happening. No signs of any carp. No line bites or anything like that. I'm going to have a look about. If I can find anywhere else that looks inviting, I'm going to fish. I do love this canal section, I really do. These canals span about, just these sections I'm thinking of, they span about 20-30 miles. You've got so much water to look at, and by all accounts that there are carp in all stretches, and reasonable numbers. So if you're coming for a long weekend, you've got half a chance. It's not like you know there's a few carp every mile or so. They're a reasonable number. I just so happen to have stumbled across a few. You never know, I might stumble across a few more tomorrow. Right, let's get going. Okay, I've been here 3.5 hours. It's just coming onto dusk now. Not a bite, nothing really to show. I'm getting a bit fed up with these bloody boats coming through. But anyway, it's time to find somewhere to fish for the night. Okay, sun's just setting on Saturday night. I've come back to the Long Lake. I had a look at the lake that I had the big commons out of, which is reasonably close to here. A couple of years ago I had a couple of 20 kilos, but the lake has since been stocked full of small commons. So people are catching 40-50 carp a week, but nothing over about 35 pounds. So I think I've had the best of that lake. Nothing's been caught yet this year. There was a pair of Dutch anglers and 3 German anglers on there. No one had a bite yet, which isn't surprising. It was quite a big lake and it hasn't really woken up yet. So I've given that one a miss. Anyway, I've just put 4 rods out. I've found a lovely bar. It goes up to 1 foot deep and then drops down to 4 foot, which is the deepest water I can find on this side. I've had to put the rods up really high, just because the bar's so savagely sharp. If it runs, I want to make sure my rod's as high as possible. Should really have a snag leader on that, but it's too late now. So anyway, all 4 rods are out on singles, all snowman presentations. I've reverted back to the small hooks, size 6 long shank muggers in the covert, purely on the basis that I'm not fishing on the canal, I'm fishing on a lake, and there aren't any snags on here. And I've caught carp on here before on size 8 hooks. So anyway, I'm going to have to get set up. Lights pressing on, and it's going to start raining. But anyway, over and out for the evening. Okay, it's 11:30 Sunday morning. Been tapped by the guard at 8 o'clock this morning. They were very nice gentlemen. They just told me that to fish this place was an extra 16 euros a year, and I had to go up to the restaurant to buy it. But since I'm the only one stupid enough to be out here this early in the year, they let me off, and they said I can night fish as well, but that rule only applies this early in the year. And come April, when the crowds gather, it's absolutely no. It looks pretty bleak out here, doesn't it? Pretty bleak indeed. Got a lovely southwesterly wind heading up that end of the lake, round to my right, which goes up and up and up. Not that one, that's a small lake there. Just round to, if I just move forward, goes up round to the right, and I was fishing right up the other end when we first arrived. Just opposite where those reeds are, there's a gravel bar that comes up to 1 foot deep and crosses all the way to this side. Battery's dying there, and I'm just on the inside of that. But anyway, it's pretty bleak. I've not had anything. Just before the battery dies, I think I'm going to head off to the canal and try one of my spots for a few hours that I've been pre-baiting. Okay, it's 6:10, no good here. I'm just getting fed up with the sodding canal boats coming through with a bunch of Germans on. Every 5 bloody minutes, having to wind your rods in. So yeah, word of advice, don't do it on the Easter weekend on a Sunday afternoon. Couldn't have got my timing worse. Right, I've got about an hour and a half before it gets dark. Last chance tonight, so I'm going to head back to the Long Lake, and I think I'll probably head down to the end that I started in. I've put a little bit of bait in there, up in the reserve area. It's not ideal for that. I'm about a month. I keep saying it. I'm about a month or so too early for them to really be getting into the shallow water. I don't know where the fish are. I've had one small common out of the lake. But anyway, I've got to get moving, got to go. Okay, it's 10 past 7. The clocks went forward yesterday, so it was effectively 10 past 6. But it's 10 past 7 now. I put some bait in into the reserve when I arrived. I've left it a good few days now. I knew there was one more in me, and I had a take at midnight. Didn't actually feel that big. And I've got it in the net, and it was a lot bigger than I thought. I think it's about £35 mirror, so a couple of 30s for the weekend session. I'm happy about that. It was flipping cold last night. There's frost on the unhooking mat this morning, so it must have gone down to about -1. And we've now got the remnants of Hurricane Katie arriving. It's still clear here, but we've got that's dark cloud you can see in the distance there. And I'm desperate to try and get everything sorted before it arrives, because and I'll get on the road before it arrives, because it could be pretty nasty. It says it's force 5 winds coming, which is ideal carp conditions, but I'm on my way home by then. Just to run you, I'll tell you where I had the fish from. I didn't have it on these 2 rods. Just to run you through the swim. You've got here, it goes out 4 foot deep, then it drops to 5 foot, and then there's a lovely firm area of 5 foot about 30 yards out. Then it drops another foot to 6 and becomes weedy, and it's weedy for 200 metres out. I've been with the Echo, I've led it about a little bit. I can't find anything that I'm comfortable fishing over, so these 2 rods have just been close in. And then I've got a couple of rods further round that are fished just in the entrance to the reserve area. I'm well back from the reserve. The reserve's another 200 metres further down, but this is just the narrow entrance to it. So the fish just came on the middle rod of these 3. Just fished halfway across. No more than 20 yards out in the central channel, which goes down to about 4 foot deep. Oh, it's flipping shallow, this lake, I can't believe it. 4 foot deep, and then it's, as you go further up to the right, it's getting shallower and shallower. God, it looks good for a bite now. The southerly wind's just picking up down here. Okay, there we are. Great end to the trip. It's gone 42 with the sling. So the slings, I think the sling is about £5, I think. So it's probably about 37, but yeah, I think it's a female. It's just starting to show signs. Let's try that again. There we are, look at that. Magical. It took a snowman presentation, 12mm Hellraiser white pop-up with an 18mm live system bait underneath, snowman style, 8 inches of coated braid and a 3-ounce lead. Wonderful. Started on the long lake with my standard 8 inches of the coated braid in a 20 pound. That's with an 18mm live system bait and a small 12mm fluoro pop-up. I like the white and the kind of dulled out pink colours. So I started with that with a size 6 long shank mugger. These are the size in the covert style. They're exactly the same pattern. This is the old style Carp long shank. The newer style have got a slightly different finish, and I don't like them quite as much. And we also had here 14mm Hellraiser pop-up. That's on some sort of a bristle filament with about 1.5 inches, and size 4 ESP stiff rigger hook, and that just sits on the bottom. That just sits like that. Now I'm quite happy to use a size 4 hook with a 12 or 14mm bait. These carp have got much bigger mouths than in England, and they're less finicky because they don't get caught as much. And that there is about 4 to 6 inches of braid, with a nice bit of movement, and a standard leg clip system with leg core. So I started off on the long lake with that setup and that setup. I had the small common of about 15 pounds on the pop-up, and then I went straight over to the canal, and at the canal it was all a bit rushed as usual, so I just chucked the rigs out, and immediately I got a take on this, and I had the upper 20 common it was. But, and there is a big but here, the hook, there was about a 2mm hook mark in the bottom lip, and these carp certainly haven't been caught this year, and the hook hold was nailed in the top lip. I was actually very surprised with how hard the canal carp fought, particularly early on in the year. I was having good 10 to 15 minute battles with them. I'm absolutely sure that this size 4 stiff rigger had come out of the bottom lip during the fight. Fortunately for me, had gone into the top lip of that common. Anyway, no more than 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later, I had the big mirror, and the big mirror came on this setup, and it was absolutely nailed, so all happy, no problem. However, during the afternoon, I maintained this on both rods. I changed this and used the size 6 and the small snowman setup, and I had 2 more takes and I lost both fish. And I'm convinced it's to do with the fact the size 6 hook, whilst it is still one of my favourites, the carp have big fleshy mouths and they were hard fighters, and I'm sure that the gape here wasn't wide enough to catch hold of enough flesh, and it just pulled out too easily. I went on to this setup, which is a slightly stiffer coated braid that you can use with this setup, where you can easily exchange it. I think they call it the multi-rig, basically that's a size 2 Solar 101, and 18mm live system bait goes nicely with that, and I use a bit of silicone tubing there to go over the eye, and that keeps, because it's such a big hook, I don't like having a very aggressive bend on that, because basically with a smaller bait like that and a big hook, I want the bait to be in line with the bend of the hook to an extent, just to ensure that that bend and that whole hook goes into the mouth. Obviously you can catch them with much more aggressive bends. Loads of people do it. If I was to pull that off, you are going to catch carp with that, but there's a wider overall diameter there to go into the carp's mouth, so I prefer to bring that right up round so that the bait is coming off the top of the hook, and then hold that in position with a bit of silicone like that. And when you get a take on that, that's going to pull down like that and expose most of the hook for hooking the carp. Anyway, I should have moved, personally I think I should have moved on to this the moment I got to the canal, but I don't know, you can't always make the right decisions. I've caught many river carp on this setup. Just on this occasion it happened to be a little bit more hit and miss. It's also worth mentioning, if you notice from the setup, I was basically fishing almost directly above the carp, and when you're directly above the carp, I think it makes a big difference using a bigger lead, because these are on lead clip systems, and I was initially on the 2 to 3 ounce leads, and when that pulls away like that, basically because we're coming from above the carp, there's no pressure on that, and I'm sure one of the takes that I lost was a twitchy take, and I went and hit into it. Basically I'm giving direct pressure from directly above, and I actually prefer to use a heavier lead in this situation to ensure that before you've even bent into the fish, that hook is nailed home. A nice big lead and wedging it onto the lead clip quite firmly will often give you that effect. Very, very rarely have I had the situation where a big lead has held on. When you've got tension from there and tension from the carp moving around, that they can quite easily shed a 5 or 6 ounce lead, even if you push that tail rubber right on. So again, for me, fishing directly above the carp, I like to go with a bigger lead and a heavier gauged hook.